So welcome to the table, and here is the Pacific Skies knit scarf. This is using a sock yarn type that we have, and you can use your Peyton's Croy socks. The yarn that is requested has actually been discontinued, but that doesn't mean the pattern's not any good. It just means that you just have to find a different yarn. I'm going to just grab some stitch markers, just put them aside here, and I want to use those to help me to keep balance on where the repeat pattern is in this. I always find that's a little helpful for me because I'm still almost a beginner, easy level now knitter. Here's the pattern that we're going to be creating. I kind of lied and said I repeated 3 times. I just did twice. You can see the horseshoe shape here. This is called horseshoe lace, and it is really neat. It's a repeat of 8 rows. But what we have to be very careful on this pattern, which I learned, is that we're going to cast on a certain amount of stitches, but the horseshoe pattern itself is a multiple of 10 plus 1. But what I'm telling you is that if you want to change the size of this particular scarf, that's not the multiple. That is just for the horseshoe itself, because this particular pattern has a gartered edge on both sides. So you're questioning, well, how is casting on 35 the same as multiples of 10 plus 1? It's not. This is because this is factoring in 2 stitches per side. That is the garter edge that is in here. So when you read the instructions here, it says K1 yarn over blah, 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 blah. But down here, there's a note. It says K2 work row 1 with the horseshoe lace, and then keeping the first and last 2 stitches as the garter stitch. So before you can do this, you have to do your first 2 stitches as a knit stitch every time and your last 2 as that. And so technically the repeat pattern for this, if you really want to do it, is multiples of 10 plus 5. Okay, in order to keep it in line with this pattern. But if you don't want the garter edge, then it would be 10 plus 1. But that's just, what am I to do, right? So I used here Red Heart Roll With It Melange with a 5mm, a US 8 knitting needle. I just use circular because it's my preference, but if you want to use the straight needles, you can. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you cast on. There are videos on learning to cast on if you need that. So I want you to cast on 35, and then we're going to get ourselves started. And before we can start this here, we have to come down here first and then jump up here. This is just the repeating of the pattern itself. As you know, because I'm learning, I make a little cheat sheet for myself and I check it off as I go, and I put little side notes for myself just to understand the pattern even more. And the first time that I go through 1 through 8 here, I'm going to mansplain myself through it. That means I'm probably going to over talk about it. And then I'm going to record again rows 1 through 8 with all that extra explanation so that you can just play that over and over and over to your heart's content. So let's grab our knitting needles. If you want to use the sock yarn like this, the knitting needles will be 2.75mm, a US 2, but I'm using Red Heart Roll With It Melange, so I'm using a 5mm US 8 on camera today. The color that I'm using at this moment is Red Heart Roll With It Melange in the color called Showtime. And I'm going to use a long tail cast on, so just have a long tail. And then I'm going to use the 2 needles together. So I'm just going to create a slip knot first. And if you need a slower demonstration, we have video tutorials just for these kind of techniques. And I'm going to put the 2 needles together and we're going to do a long tail cast on. Okay, and so I'll put that on. And so I'll just show a really quick demonstration here. So this here is going to the tail. This here is to the ball itself. I put my fingers in between and I pinch it like this. And then I go from the palm, collect, wrap, okay, and flick. And I'm going over both needles so that I can create the first line to be a little more looser because it's easier to deal with. So palm, wrap, and flick. I'll show you 2 more times. So palm, wrap, and flick. And 1 more time. So palm, wrap, and flick. So after I get a certain amount of stitches, I will pull one of the needles out and then continue along. And you can find this kind of information on other tutorials if you need it on learning how to cast on using 2 needles with long tail cast on. I'll be right back. Make sure you have 35 and ready to go. I'm now back and I just did my long tail cast on using the 2 needles. So I'm going to pull out the 1 needle. So I have it to access. I have confirmed 3 times there's 35. The number is really critical. If you have still an extra long tail that you started with, you can just trim it down, but don't trim it to the point that you can't use a tapestry needle to hide in your loose ends later. So put that aside. So we're going to begin in the pattern, and this is not part of the repeat pattern. This is just getting us all set up. So I'm just going to grab my yarn and put it into my hands, and the next 2 rows that we're about to do is just the knit stitch back and forth. It's like a garter stitch because that's exactly what it is. So I want you to knit the first 2 rows. So you're going to go across and then turn and then knit back across with the knit stitch, and therefore you've got the 2 first rows that are the setup, and then we're going to begin the repeating to start with the with the horseshoe lace pattern in just a moment. So please knit the first 2 rows. So let's start row number 1. This is the horseshoe lace pattern itself. Remember, as per the instructions, the first 2 stitches are always a K2, so a knit stitch for each one, and the last 2 stitches are always a K2, so a knit the last 2. So anything that happens in between is listed is listed from rows 1 through 8, but the first 2 and the last 2 stitches are omitted from those instructions. So you just have to make sure that you put that in. So the first 2 stitches are going to be a knit stitch. So it's going to keep a garter edge. That's what they're asking us to do. It says now in the pattern, it says rows 1 is purl. So now that we have this, we move this yarn between the 2 needles to the front side first, and we're going to purl the rest of the stitches all the way to the other side, except for the very final 2 stitches. What are you going to do? That's right, you're going to make those a knit stitch. So you're just going to purl into the 3rd last stitch, and I'll be right back and I'll show you just to make sure you switch your yarn back to knit stitch the final 2. I'm finishing up row number 1. I had the last 2 stitches. Make sure you push the yarn in behind before you start, and then knit the final 2. And this is row number 1. Let's reset this into our hands, switch hands, and we're going to begin row number 2. So I know what you're thinking, maybe. These stitch markers are still sitting here. It's going to be this row that I'm going to put them in place. And so it says K1, yarn over K3 in the row 2 instructions, but what do we need to do first? That's right, we need to knit the first 2 before we start that section on the pattern itself. Now, we're going to go to row 2 and read it, and let's go slowly. And notice that the asterisk where it is, because that's where the repeat's going to happen. So we're going to knit the first one. So knit 1. We're then going to yarn over. So bring the yarn through the 2 needles to the front and back. Okay, so it's at the back, bring it through the needles and around, and this makes an extra loop on the needle. And then we're going to K3, so it's knit 3. So starting, we're going to knit stitch the next 3 in a row. So let's count those out together. So we have 1, 2, 3. The pattern now says skip 2P. And so what we're going to do with this is that it's actually pretty simple, and I'm going to demonstrate it, and we'll be continuing to do this throughout. The first thing that we need to do is the next stitch here, we need to transfer it knitwise to this needle. So we're not going to knit it at all. We're just going to pick it up and transfer. See these next 2? This is going to be a knit 2 together. So instead of just knitting just the one, you're going to grab and the one before and grab both onto the same needle so that they're both going to be worked in. And then you're going to knit. So 2 stitches just became 1 and slide off. But you're not done. So the finishing half of that abbreviation of skip 2P is taking the first one that you transferred over and just move it over top of the other one and right off the needle. So this is a pass over like that. Okay, we're going to move on. The next 3 stitches are K3, so we're going to knit 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3. I'm holding for your benefit. We're now going to do a yarn over. So remember, to do yarn over, you're going to move the yarn between the 2 needles and back around, and then you are going to K1, so knit the next one only. So knit and slide and do a full stop here. Grab 1 stitch marker and place it on. This here is one of the horseshoes. And now we go back to the asterisk and repeat what we already know. You need to really watch the first one, especially when there's the yarn over that is existing after a stitch marker. It can be confusing. So I want you, now that the stitch marker is on, move the yarn over and make sure that it goes and the stitch marker is underneath like this. If you accidentally go like this, you're going to be out of order with the stitch marker. So make sure that when you do the yarn over, that this appears and the yarn stitch marker is right there. So this is the beginning of a new repeat. So the yarn over and then K3. So we're going to knit the next 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And then we have that skip stitch process. So remember, we take the first one and we transfer without knitting anything. And then we knit the next 2 together as a 2 together. So grab both of them and knit. And you're not done the process. What do you have to do? That's right, you have to take that one you transferred and move it over top. You're going to knit the next 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3. We're now going to yarn over and then knit the next one. And this is another repeat that's done. And this is where I want you to put another stitch marker. You will be noticing that there's 10 stitches in between these stitch markers. So when you start the next repeat, make sure when you yarn over to start again, you yarn over, but make sure the stitch marker stays here. So you yarn over and knit the next 3. So 1, 2, and 3. We're going to do the skip process. So transfer, knit the next 2 together. It can sometimes be tight. And you're not done. What are you going to do? That's right, you grab the first one that you transferred, pick it up and over. You're going to knit the next 3. You are going to yarn over and then knit 1. And this is the end of another repeat. And you will notice you have the 2 stitches left. That's your garter edge. So now just knit stitch the final 2. And this was row number 2. So now your stitch markers are in place. So you'll be able to see the in-between points of where the horseshoes are going forward. And we're going to transfer those as we continue throughout the project, up through the project. So you'll always be able to keep an eye on those. Let's reset this in our hands and let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is the same as number 1. So remember, the 2 beginning are always going to be a knit stitch regardless of what row you're on. And in row number 3, the remaining all the way across to the third last one is going to be a purl. So move the yarn in between and to the front before you do that, and purl all the way to the third one, and then you're going to knit the last 2. These ones that you did a yarn over always look a little weird. That's what's creating the space to make this awesome. So just make sure you treat it like a regular stitch, because where you did 2 together before, you've had to yarn over to make up the stitch that you took away, and that's what those are. So please purl all the way across and then knit your final 2, and this will conclude row number 3 in just a moment or so. And I'll turn my work and get ready for row number 4. So continue to purl all the way across, and when you get to the stitch marker, I want you to transfer the stitch marker directly over. So the stitch marker is never knitted into the project itself. It's just resting on the needles to separate the stitches to help you keep a count. So when you're purling across, when you get to a stitch marker, just like I'm about to get there now, see it's there. So just transfer it over and it keeps it in line, and continue to do the stitch work as you know it to be. This will be very helpful for you to have. So please continue all the way across, knit the final 2 regularly, and then I'll see you on row number 4. So make sure you get that done, and I'll reset my hands and begin on row number 4 in just a moment. So let's begin row number 4. The first 2 stitches and the last 2 stitches are in the knit stitch. So just do those before you start doing the pattern itself. Okay, so let's do the pattern. So it says to purl 1 first, so we're going to move the yarn in front and we're going to purl the first one. And now the repeat is about to start. So whenever we do the repeating, here's what it's going to be. We're going to move the yarn back and we're going to K1. So we're going to knit 1. And then we're going to yarn over. So bring the yarn in front and rest. And then we're going to K2. So we're going to knit 2. I'm trying to use the abbreviations so that you can understand that. So we're knitting 2. And now we do the skip process that we already know. So the skip process is in the center of the horseshoe itself, so it's going to keep that in balance. So you're going to transfer the first one. Okay, so that's a slip one, so we transfer knitwise. And then we put the next 2 together. And then what are you going to do? That's right, you're going to move the one that you transferred over top. So see this yarn right here that I'm wiggling? Sometimes if you hold that a little more tense, it will pull it backwards so it doesn't fly off the needle. That might be helpful to know. We're going to knit the next 2. So K2. We're going to yarn over. Okay, so yarn over this way. We're going to K1, so we're going to knit 1. And then we're going to purl 1. So move this. And this is the end of the repeat on this purl. And do you notice where the stitch marker is? It's exactly in between the horseshoes. That's why I had you put it. So you know that you're right? So it helps you to confirm your mind. So transfer over and let's begin another repeat section. So going back to the asterisks, we're going to K1, so we need to move this yarn in behind. Make sure that the stitch marker stays where it's supposed to, and you're going to knit the first one. Okay, so the stitch marker should just be directly behind the first one you just knit, and then you're going to yarn over and K2, so you'll knit 2. You're then going to skip the stitches. So transfer, I'll just say skip. So transfer first, put the next two together. And then it's called pass over, so grab the first one that you transferred and go up and over. You're then going to K2, so knit 2. We're then going to yarn over, K1, so knit 1. And the last one in the repeat is purl 1, so P1, so move the yarn in front first, and then purl. Let's continue along. We're going to transfer the stitch marker, and then start the next repeat again. So starting, we're going to K1, so we're going to move the yarn back first, and knit 1. Make sure the stitch marker is in between the last one you just did and the one before. Then you're going to yarn over and K2, so knit 2. To begin the slipping process, so slip the first one over, knit the next two together. Transfer over, like that. And then you're going to K2, so knit 2. You were going to yarn over, knit 1, and then purl 1, the last one. So move the yarn in front and purl. And this will leave you with two stitches. This is the end of a repeat, so that leaves you your end stitches. So you're going to knit the final 2. And this was row number 4. Let's turn our work and begin number 5. So let's do number 5. 5 and 7 are really fabulous. I love 5 and 7 because it's easy. And we're going to knit the first 2 as always. Okay, so that's non-negotiable. And now we're going to start here. And now at this point, the repeat starts immediately. There's not a buffer in front. So we're going to knit the first one. And I'm going to give you a little tip in just a few moments. And you're going to purl the next 9. So move the yarn in front and purl the next 9. If you look at here, how many stitches are there to the stitch marker? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You don't even need to count. The stitch marker is there. Okay, so you just purl the next 9 all the way to the stitch marker, and then you restart the repeat again. How fabulous is that? Really fabulous. This is why I do advanced tutorials work in front of a video, so I never just pick up a pattern and film. I have to do my homework. It's stuff like this that I learn that becomes a lot easier to show you. So as soon as I'm here and I'm at the stitch marker, I'm going to transfer the stitch marker, and then I'm going to begin the first one. So the repeating is the first one has to be a knit stitch. And make sure that stitch marker is staying exactly where it's supposed to be. Okay, so it's in between the last stitch you made and the one before it. And then you're going to purl the next 9, which should be the number of stitches before the next stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Brilliant. And now I'm at the stitch marker again. So transfer and make the first one a knit stitch, starting in the next one. And I need you to count this time the 9th to the 9th. So the first one's in, the stitch marker is right where it should be, and you're gonna purl the next 9. So we'll count those out together. And there's a purpose for this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. There should be 3 stitches left over, and I move my hands and there is. So if you look at the pattern, it says to the last, and then it says K1. So the last stitch before you do the garter edge is a K1, so it's a knit 1. Okay, so that's on its own, and then you're going to do your final 2 stitches as you know it of a knit stitch. And this is row number 5. Check that off on your list, and let's begin number 6. Let's begin number 6. So you're going to knit the first 2. It's your garter edge, non-negotiable. And then we start that row of instructions. So the first one is a purl 1, so move the yarn in front and purl the first one. And then the repeat pattern starts next. So the repeat pattern states that it's going to be a K2, so you're going to knit the first 2, so move the yarn in back and knit the first 2. It then states to yarn over, so move the yarn in front and then knit 1. The next one is that skip stitch process, so transfer and knit the next 2 together. And then transfer the one you put over top. Okay, you're going to knit the next one. You are going to yarn over and then knit the next 2. And then the last one in the repeat is a purl 1. So move the yarn in front and purl that one, and you can see where the stitch marker is. So you know that you're technically at the end of a repeat in the instructions, and also the stitch marker is in the right place. Transfer that stitch marker and begin another set. So you're going to start with the first 2 as K2. So knit 2 and make sure that stitch marker stays exactly where it's supposed to stay. So if you're going to knit 2, you got to make sure you put the yarn in behind first, and then just knit the first one and verify that the stitch marker is right in the right spot. You're going to yarn over and then knit the next one. Okay, let's do the skipping process. So we're going to move this over. Knit the next 2 together. And then move the first one over. Make sure you grab all the plies. And then move along. You're going to knit the next one. And then yarn over. And then K2, so we're going to knit the next 2. And the last one before the end of the repeat is purl 1. And transfer your thing, and let's begin that again. So we're going to start off the first 2. You got to move this first, is going to be K2, so knit 2 yarn over, and then K1, knit 1. Do the skip process, so transfer, knit the next 2 together, and then put the first one over that. You're going to knit the next one, yarn over, and knit the next 2. And the next one, this is the third last one, is a purl 1. And that's the end of the repeat. And then the last 2 is your garter edge. So just switching the yarn to the back side, knit stitch the final 2 as you already know it to be. You're going to start seeing this pattern is starting to develop in your hands now at this point. If you just stretch it out, kind of see how things are working. And now we're going to turn our work and do row number 7. So row number 7, if you trust yourself, go with your gut instinct, you're going to knit your first 2, that's your garter edge. And then the repeat is going to start immediately. So you're going to start with knitting the first one, and then you were going to purl the next 9. Move the yarn in front, and if you want to verify using your stitch marker, you can. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you verify that and you trust yourself, you may not need to count that if you trust yourself. But if you count it in advance, it saves you counting it in real time. So I'm looking for the stitch marker to indicate when I'm stopping to do the purl. And that would represent the 9th one. Once you have that confirmed, transfer, move the yarn in behind, and knit the first one. And make sure that the stitch marker stays right where it's supposed to. So you do the first one as a knit 1 and then the next 9. So if you want to verify, you can. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So therefore you don't have to count in real time. I found with myself, once I got moving on this, I started trusting the stitch markers to avoid that extra counting, but you can decide what works for you. Remember, everybody's ways of and methods are different. You're at the stitch marker again. I've just purled. I'm going to transfer, do the last repeat. So the first one is a knit 1, and I want to count the 9 purls. And just move the yarn in front. If you don't want to count the 9, you just have to remember that there will be 3 stitches left over, and the stitch, the third last stitch, according to the instructions, will be a K1. So knit 1 and then knit the final 2 if you don't want to do that. So if you just look at the final 3 and make sure that there's 9, so 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, you don't have to count as excessively. So you can decide what works for you, either count it out or just plan ahead. I think my biggest issue with the knitting so far, because I'm still at the beginner stage, even though I'm doing this fabulous pattern, is that I have to keep moving that stitch work down the needles. It's something I haven't really developed like a methodical push, I guess you can say, because I find it gets harder the more it's bunching up on the tip of the needles. So I just got to get used to the process. So I got 3 stitches left, so that means I'm going to knit the last 3. So you knit the last one here, that's part of the instruction, and then the final 2 is the garter edge. And this was row number 7. So we have one more row to go, which will be row number 8, what will be the repeat, and you really can start seeing it happen. So let's do number 8 next. Let's do number 8. The first 2, yes, that's your garter edge. So just knit the first 2 before looking at that pattern for the repeating. Okay, and now I want you to start looking at the pattern. So we're going to purl the first one, and then the repeat starts next. So right where the asterisk is, we're going to knit the first 3. So let's count these out together. So we have 1, 2, and 3. And then it states to yarn over. So let's yarn over. And we're going to do the skip process. So let's transfer the 1 over first and put the next 2 together. And then you do the one that you transferred over. Then you're going to yarn over and then knit the next 3. So 1, 2, 3, and you have 1 stitch left in the repeat, and this last stitch is going to be a purl 1, so it's just a purl. Okay. So transfer, so let's take a look. So transfer, and let's put the yarn in behind, and let's begin another repeat. So the first 3 that you'll have will be a knit 3. So let's count these out together. So we have 1, 2, and 3. We are going to do a yarn over and then do that skip process. So yarn over and then just transfer. Put the 2 in together. And the one you transferred, just move it back over. You're then going to yarn over, and then you're going to knit the next 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3. And you have 1 stitch left over, so that's going to be a purl 1. And we're going to go through the process one more time. So transfer, and let's begin the repeat again. So it's going to be knit 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Yarn over and do that skip process. So transfer the 1, knit the next 2 together, and then when you transferred, pick it up and go over, then yarn over and knit the next 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And the very last stitch in the repeat is a purl 1. And this should leave you at the end with the 2 stitches, which is your garter stitch, their knit stitch, so move the yarn in behind and knit the final 2. And this was rows number 1 through 8 completely. And so when I stretch things out, you can really see that it's worked its way out. And it'll really be effective once you do that again. And what we're going to do is repeat rows number 1 through 8 again and again and again, and I will omit all the extra detail. Let's begin rows number 1 through 8. I'm just going to read off the stitches and knit in real time, and you can just repeat this section 1 through 8 over and over and over. So let's begin number 1 through 8. When it's a simple instruction, I'll give you simple instruction to meet me at the end of the row, and when it's more complex, I'll take you right through the whole thing. For row number 1, don't forget, you're going to do your garter stitch. So the 2 in the very beginning and the 2 last stitches are a knit stitch. The remaining stitches all the way across are going to be a purl. So purl all the way across except for the last 2, and do that, and we're going to start row number 2 in just a moment. Put me on pause now. Let's begin number 2. I'm going to walk you through it, and you're going to do the 2 stitches in the front end of a knit stitch. This is the garter edge. Then we have to knit the next one. The repeating starts from this stitch onward. So let's begin. We're going to yarn over, and we're going to knit the next 3. So we'll count those together. 1, 2, and 3. We're now going to put the skip stitches concept together. So we're going to transfer the first and put the next 2 stitches together. And then don't forget to transfer the first one that you moved over, up and over to complete. You can really see how the stitches are working together now. We're going to knit the next 3. We'll count those together. So we have 1, 2, and 3. And the very final one that we have to yarn over first, and then we're going to knit the last one before the repeat, and we can see the stitch marker. So transfer that stitch marker over, and we're going to begin another repeat. Let's begin. We're going to do a yarn over first. Make sure you keep the stitch marker right where it is so it doesn't lose its positioning, and you are going to knit the next 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Now you're going to do the skip stitch formation. So you're going to transfer and knit the next 2 together. Don't forget to move the one you transferred back over. You're going to knit the next 3. We'll count together 1, 2, and 3. And you can see that stitch markers coming up, but before you finish that last one, you have to yarn over first and knit the last one before the stitch marker. Let's go through another repeat. So transfer over, and this is your last repeat. So you're going to start by yarning over, make sure it stays the stitch marker right where it's supposed to, and you're going to knit the next 3. I'm learning how to use these stitch markers more effectively. So 1, 2, and 3. You're now going to do that the skipping stitch stuff. So just transfer the first one, knit the next 2 together. And then transfer that one that you did back over. Knit the next 3. You're going to yarn over and knit the last one here that is in the repeat, and this will take you to the last 2 stitches left, and you automatically know what to do with those. It's a knit stitch each, and this will complete this row. This was row number 2. Let's begin and turn, and let's do number 3. Number 3 is identical to number 1, so you're just going to start off, and the first 2 stitches are your knit stitches. And then everything else in between is going to be a purl stitch. So you'll start purling, and then the last 2 stitches are a knit stitch. So it's identical to row number 1. So please do this for row number 3 and have that done, and meet me on number 4 in just a moment. Let's begin number 4. So the first 2 stitches and the last 2 you already know. It's a knit stitch. And on the first stitch here is a purl. So we're going to move the yarn in front first and purl. The repeating starts from this moment. So let's begin. We're going to move the yarn back so we can do a knit 1. And then we're going to do a yarn over. And then knit the next 2. Okay, now we're going to do the skipping formation that we want. So we're going to transfer over. It's called the slip stitch as well. And then you're going to knit the next 2 together. And then move the first one over. Okay. You're going to knit the next 2. We're going to yarn over, knit the next one, and the one before the stitch marker and the repeat is a purl one, so just purl the last one. Okay, and then transfer your stitch marker and continue. So now you're going to knit 1, so you're going to move this yarn in behind first and knit the next one. And then you're going to yarn over and knit the next 2. 1 and 2. And now we're going to do the skip stitch stuff. Transfer, knit the next 2 together, and then put the first one over. You're going to knit the next 2, 1 and 2. You are going to yarn over, knit the next one, and then the one before the stitch marker is a purl. So move the yarn in front first and then purl. Transfer, stitch marker over, and let's begin the last repeat. So you got to move the yarn first and make the first one a knit. Make sure the stitch marker stays where it's supposed to. You're going to yarn over and knit the next 2. 1 and 2. You're now going to do the skip stitch stuff, so transfer, put the next 2 together, put the first one over, and then knit the next 2. 1 and 2. You're going to yarn over and knit the next one. And then the last one here before the edging is a purl. And finally the last 2 is a knit stitch. This was row number 4. Turn your work and let's get ready for number 5. 5 and 7 are both the same, so let's do number 5. Let's make that garter edge. So you got the 2 knit stitches. Just like that. And then we have to knit the first one. So this is the repeat. So you knit the first one and then the next 9 are purls. So you can look at your stitch marker and there should be 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you got that, you don't have to count to the next stitch marker. So please do that quietly. Well, I will do it quietly. Once you get to the stitch marker, transfer, and the first one out is a knit stitch in the repeat pattern. So move the yarn back first and knit the first one and make sure that stitch marker stays in between the stitch you just created and the one before it, which it does. You're going to purl the next 9, and if you want to count ahead, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you don't need to count then, just purl those 9. Stitch marker is next. So transfer the stitch marker, and then you're going to knit the first one. Now this is the edge, so the first 9 are going to be the purls. There's going to be 3 stitches left after you do the 9. So the third last one is going to be a knit stitch, and so will the last 2, just to keep that in mind. So we can count it if we wish. So make sure it's a purl. So move that yarn in front and purl. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And when I move my hands, there should only be 3 stitches left, and there is. So the next stitch is a knit stitch. And then finally, the last 2 is the garter edge, and those are also the knit stitch. And this completes row number 5. Let's begin number 6. Let's begin number 6, and the 2 beginning and the 2 end is the knit stitch as always. And then the next stitch here is a purl. The repeat pattern starts from this very next stitch. To start with, you're going to knit the first two. So we have 1 and 2. You're going to yarn over and then knit the next one. And then you're going to do the skip stitch formation. So transfer, knit the next two together, and transfer the one back. You're then going to knit the next one, yarn over, knit the next two. So we have 1 and 2. And the last one before the repeat is a purl. Let's transfer and let's start another repeat. Reset your yarn in the behind and knit the first two. 1, 2. We're going to yarn over, knit the next one. We're going to do the skip stitch, so transfer, put the next two together. Transfer the one back over. Knit the next one. Yarn over and knit the next two. The one before the stitch marker is a purl. So move the yarn in front and purl. We have one more repeat to get through. So transfer and start the next and final repeat on this. So you're going to knit the first two, so put the yarn in behind and knit the first two. So we have 1 and 2. Yarn over and knit the next one. You're then going to do the skip formation, so transfer, knit the next two together, and put the transfer one over top. You're going to knit the next one, yarn over, knit the next two, the next one is a purl, which is the end of the repeat. And then finally your last two is a knit stitch each. This is row number 6. Let's turn our work and do number 7. Let's begin number 7. You're going to knit the first two. And it's the same as number 5. So your next one here is a knit. And then you should have 9 stitches before the stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And they'll all be a purl stitch. So move the yarn in front and purl the next 9. Once you get here, transfer and start the repeat again. So move the yarn in behind and knit the first one. Confirm your stitch marker is in the right position. The next 9 will all be a purl. So I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So that's good. Stitch marker is up next. Transfer. You're going to knit the first one, so move the yarn behind first and knit. Confirm your stitch markers in position. And then you're going to knit the next 9 at the end. And remember, there will be 3 left over at the end after you do 9. So just in case you don't really want to count it, but I'll count it with you. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And there should be 3 loops left over, and there is. So then the next one is going to be a knit stitch, and then you finally have your edge, and that is obviously going to be a garter stitch. So just 2 knit stitches in a row. This is row number 7. Turn our work, and let's begin number 8. Let's begin number 8, and you're going to start off with the 2 stitches in the front end to keep your edging as the garter stitch. The next stitch is a purl 1, so move the yarn in front and purl. The next 3 are a knit stitch, so move the yarn back and knit 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. You're going to yarn over first, and then do your skip stitch stuff. So transfer, put the next 2 together, transfer the first one back over. Before you continue, you're going to yarn over again, and then you're going to knit the next 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3, and there should be 1 left just before the stitch marker, and there is. That one will be a purl. Let's transfer and do another set. Move the yarn back and knit the first 3. So we have 1, and I'm confirming the stitch marker. There's 2 and 3. Before you begin that skip stitch, yarn over first, and then transfer over and knit the 2 together. Transfer the first one back. You're then going to yarn over and knit the next 3, knit 3, 1, 2, and 3. You should have one left before the stitch marker, and that'll be a purl 1. Transfer the stitch marker, and then we're going to do the repeat one more time. So move the yarn back so you can knit the first 3 and confirm the stitch marker has been moved. So we have 1, 2, 3. You're going to yarn over and then do the skip stitch stuff. So transfer first, knit the next 2 together, and transfer the 1 back. You're going to yarn over, knit the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. And then you're going to purl 1 as your last one. And then you're on your edging again. And the edging, as you already know it to be, it's going to be 2 knit stitches in a row. So do your last one, move the yarn in front. So the last 2 will be a knit stitch for your garter edge. And now we've officially, in the video, have gone 2 formations, and you can clearly see what's going on here, and it's absolutely just spectacular. So now you can reverse the video back. You can use the video description. There is a time marker to take you back to row number 1. Do the one with less explanation, and it would just take you through this again over and over and over, and then you can keep reversing back and back. Once you get to your length that you would like to get to, it's approximately going to be about 60 inches, and then I'm going to show you how to fasten off. So we have to do 2 rows just like we did at the very beginning to have the balance, and that's where I'm going to see you next. So welcome back, and I've completed several more repeats, and when you're ready to finish off this thing, you want to finish on a row number 8. Okay, so after you get that done, so you can see that this here, I've learned since I've done this sample, that the back of it here looks different than the original. And if you really look at the model, you'll notice that she's wearing her scarf upside down, because you can see these verticals, where here, this is what the good side looks like, and it's very 3-dimensional, it lifts off, and it's really fabulous. So this is not bad considering I'm still a beginner. So when you're ready to finish off, the next 2 rows are going to be your next step. So the next 2 rows are just going to each be a knit stitch. Okay, so nothing fancy. And because we still have our stitch markers on, if you are still having yours on, you can release those off completely and just remove them from the project. So please just knit this row and the next, and meet me back here in just a moment. So I've just knitted 2 rows back and forth, and now we're ready for the cast off, or also called the bind off. So let's show you how that's done. You're going to knit the first stitch, and then you're going to knit the next stitch. And then, using your hands, kind of keep tension on this one here, because you need to get the first loop up and over this stitch and over the tip. So if you kind of hold this back, it prevents this first one from coming off. So just scoop it under, and this takes practice, and you're going to scoop over like this and move down. So to do the next one, you knit first, and then scoop the first one over. It's all about the tension of that yarn going to the strand. And I've been doing this now just for a few weeks, and I realize, you know, you get better and better at things when you go to do it. And what we're doing is that we're finishing the edge. And so I need you to do that all the way across, and then I'll be right back in a moment, and we'll talk about doing the very end of weaving in the ends and etc. I'll be right back. So I'm coming to my very last one, and I'm going to knit, and then I'm going to take the first one over, and this is where the journey is going to end. Now, don't be crazy now, and I want you to take the strand and keep it a little bit long and trim, noticing that the needle is still in play. So just pull up a loop, and you can remove your needle. And if you don't secure this loop, you're gonna start all over again because it'll unravel. And I want you to put the tail end through the loop, and that will prevent it from coming apart. So done. Okay, so therefore you have this, and this will match then both sides. So now what we need to do is take your tail ends, and you need a tapestry needle for this, and you are going to just place it on. And on the back side, because you can tell which is the good side and the back side, just drag the yarn through just the back layers here. So if this needle goes through, I'm going to come through this screen and I'm going to fix your clock. So just stay so that you don't see that. And you're going to come through once. Now the first pull is going to be important because if you pull too tight, it'll change the shape. Okay, so just be firm about it, but not crazy. Then go back in the opposite direction, following a slightly different path so it gets stuck. You're better off to split the plies of the yarn than you are to divide the yarn strands. And again, you should not see this yarn on the other, or needle on the other side. It's so important that you don't just start pretending like it's a sewing thing and going in and out of the project. Just stay within the fibers in the back. Once you're done, 3 times is a charm, and any loose ends that you'll want to do this. You can safely cut it down, and therefore you'll have your scarf project that will look similar like this. And this here is the great little project. I'm still a beginner, but I'm actually pretty proud of myself. And I was told by some friends that even experienced knitters may never get to this level. So that's kind of makes me feel good too. And that's it for today. We hope you have a good one, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.